This is Spencer juggling code and art with Blender. Today I'm going to show you how I did this mermaid scene, but I have a feeling you don't know how I did the hair or the mermaid fin. After showing how those work, I'll talk about some lighting with Light Painter, positing it together, and something my ego may not be ready for, a self-critique. But that's for later. Until then, let's get into it. Regarding the mermaid fin, material of it is actually pretty simple. It's just color discoloration on it, just that way you can kind of get a little bit of color variation. That's always a good thing to have with the base color. And then I did find a scales asset online, and that's what I used to do the scales bumpy look. But in terms of the actual, like, how it's set up, I just modeled like this really simple, just like almost cylindrical wraparound. And then I just shrink wrapped it to her body. And I kind of liked giving it this kind of almost like half human look. I know she's a mermaid, she's half human, but like making the fin not really feel fully like a fish fin, that it kind of feels like the human's still under there. So I kind of wanted to give it that shape. There's some subdivision on top of it for the render to smooth it out. And then finally a solidify. With the hair, it was kind of interesting that I wanted to try to commit to learning how to do geometry nodes hair, because I know there's the particle hairs that's been in Blender since forever. But I wanted to try it really with the geometry nodes. I knew it was possible, but I didn't ever really want to like commit to it and learn it. But I learned from someone at the Blender conference in April in Texas that it's very much possible and can be used professionally. So I wanted to kind of explore it and kind of see what's possible with it. I literally just followed the Blender tutorial in terms of setting it up, but let me show you kind of the layman's basics in terms of how it works. Maybe I'll just delete this hair just so we can start from scratch. So with the hair cap, I'm going to just Shift A, curve, empty hair. And it adds hair dynamics, but I'm going to not have it on for now and just generate some hair curves. And do, that's too many. That's too many hairs. 1,000 might be too much. Let's do 500. That seems okay. Let me just see if that works. There it goes. But I'm going to update the structure and then add some settings. So I'm going to make it a little heavier. It is wetter hair, so I'm going to make it a little more bendy. And let's just try that. It's pretty good. I'm going to actually make that even a little more bendy, giving it quite a bit of room at the top, and I don't want that. Okay, so yeah, you can see there, then it's almost like too much. So we'll go back to 8.5. So I'm going to shorten this to like 2.4. Okay, so that's not going to touch the rock, but we can still have it do a collider. So with the hair dynamics, so I'm going to apply the generate hair curves. And then what I want to do is add some effectors. Is I'm going to take this out. You have to localize it because I imported it as packed. So I'm going to add a collider. And basically this just means you can take any geometry in and it'll be marked as a collider. So I'm going to pin this, that way when I select the base mesh that it won't complain. And now the hair, it'll try to wrap into her, but then it'll get confused because I'm hiding this for YouTube monetization. Let me just do convex hole. Let's see if that optimizes it up. Increase the margin a little bit. There we go. So this, now we got like a great starting point for our hair. And we haven't even done any sculpting yet. We go into here and then go into sculpt mode. Now you can start editing things about the hair. So you can, make it grow or shrink. So I'll do that with the front hair, just so it's a little, could even make it longer back here if we want. But then I can just add a hair dynamics again. But yeah, so now this is like a great base point for the hair. So now you can do the hair for interpolate. So this is kind of the big one of what makes the hair look like the hair. So I'm going to just make this really, really big, lots of hair. Look at that. Now, of course, you can see it looks really bad on the edge. This is why it's important to really have the guide hairs look good. Man, now we can do things like clumping the hair, which gives it more of a more stylized look if you want, but you can do that just a little bit. So that way it kind of clumps together a little bit. Then you can do braids if you want to go really braidy. That's really funny. It's doing it on the short hair. So you'd probably want to ensure that it doesn't do that on short hair. But there's the frizz, which honestly just roughens up the hair. So that way it just looks less smooth. This is probably the most important one to do for your hair. Actually, I'd say that's probably the second most important because the last one is less obvious, but set hair curve profile because it sets the thickness of the individual hairs. In the viewport, it'll always stay the same, so don't worry about it changing in the viewport because it's not affected by it. But this sets the actual radius of the hair, individual hairs. So most hair is quite thin, but for CG, you probably should make it a little bit thicker just that way it shows up on camera better and you don't have to have millions upon millions of hairs, right? So, yes, that's kind of the basics of doing the hair. Oh my goodness. Her front hair is so messy. So that's kind of the basics how you can do Geometry Nodes hair. Obviously, I'm not an expert. This is me just exploring and figuring out how it even works. So I'm glad I even got a half decent result, which we'll get into with the critique. But it was really fun to be able to kind of learn this stuff. And I hope with projects you feel like you can just kind of explore things and not feel like it has to be portfolio worthy or, a big deal yet, like let yourself kind of just explore and tweak and experiment for a little bit first. And let me show you the rocks. Because one of my favorite things is that these are just copies of the first rock. So the rock over here, right? So this rock here, I literally just instanced it over here. So it's just the same as these other rocks out here. I just instantiated it and rescaled it and rotated it. As you can also see, there's Suzanne. She shows up a couple times in the terrain. And then I added some surface displacement, as you'll see in the final render, that kind of tried to break up the shape a little bit so that way it's a little less obvious. Also, my favorite part is these waves. Now, you're probably wondering how I did these waves. I literally just made some image planes. I got some stock footage of waves, and I literally just did some keying. So this is the original. And then I just did some keying of waves and set that as the alpha. It honestly is pretty good. It does have some holes that I'm not proud of, but you could easily paint those over if you really wanted to. I also did this shoreline waves. That was really fun. I loved being able to do that. And then regarding the lighting, there's of course the sky texture that's lighting from here, kind of a good backlighting. And then I added two different lights. So one is lighting from behind, and it's giving this nice kind of wavy texture. It's kind of meant to be kind of like how light reflects off of water and onto the surfaces above it. That's kind of what it's supposed to be. I know with the sun being backlit that this technically isn't realistic, but it looks cool. All right. Also, I did a light just directly in front of her mermaid fin. Again, you can see it's blatantly on the rocks, but gives a really nice rim light along the fin, as you can see. Really gives nice separation with the water, and it adds this nice translucent effect through the fin. As you see, if I take that out, you can barely see it. The sky texture is doing its best, but I liked kind of giving it this strong translucent look. And those were set up with Light Painter. I also did that with the sky and with these area lamps. If you're not familiar with Light Painter, it's a tool where you can just draw onto surfaces and it'll place the light for you. You can even do relative power, so that way the apparent brightness stays the same even if it's really, really, really close or really, really far away. It just changes the fall off, mathematically speaking. You can change the power amount and things like that. And one of the things you'll notice if you're familiar with Light Painter is these new nice shortcuts. It has the keyboard icons with it, and it's really nice. I spent like a month developing this, and this update has been released to the extensions platform, so quite proud of that. And now let me show how I put it all together in the compositor. Yeah, so I rendered it in RAW because I was going to do all the color grading in the compositor, and I just rendered it out to a file with all the denoising and other passes so that way I can edit it. I lowered the exposure a little further just so that way we didn't have a ton of this clipping. And then I had some light fog, just kind of a nice little haze, little morning or evening haze. And then denoising obviously saved me a ton. As you can see, this is the raw noise. And then there's a light bloom. This is just kind of for the sky to kind of give more of that, make the sky feel a lot more brighter. Then some slight chromatic aberration. I wouldn't say that's slight, actually. I take that back. And then the Kuwahara. So with the Kuwahara effect, I actually made a mask where I used the depth and I used the painting as well. So I made her and the castle especially sharp, and then the sailboat moderately sharp, and then everything else is much more painterly. So now you can get these very painterly looking waves. Looks gorgeous. Doing some color grading, which I made it a little bit brighter. They added a nice little vignette, a subtle vignette. And then I did add a signature at the bottom. So I just took one of my other artworks and then masked it out and added it here. Kind of a janky solution, but it worked. All right. Now the much awaited, for you, not for me, of the critique. Now I'm going to hide everything white and just look at it. Like not get too lost in the implementation of it, but just the final result. Especially proud of the mermaid fin. I just think that turned out so good. The scales and the subsurface, I love that look. I love the backlighting on it. That turned out really fun. Painterly waves, the crashing of the waves looked so cool. I'm really proud of that. And the general composition I liked. If you didn't notice, there's some leading lines here. So it's this, and then she's looking this direction over the rocks to the castle. There's not much bringing it back. Usually it's good to have like a circular composition, so that way the eyes never really leave or stop at any given point. Something I was also thinking about is bring the beach closer. I think it would have been cooler to see more of the shoreline, seeing more of the kind of waves going up the water. I did this like within a week. Okay, so for reference, I wasn't particularly taking my time on this. Shoreline, it kind of feels, it's very polygonal. It's very obviously polygonal. I probably should have just kind of added a little more shape variation. Not a ton, but just enough so that way it feels a little more natural. Let's see, with the hair, I think the Kuwahara hit a lot of the issues with it. I kind of love this gradient with it. I really like how that turned out. I don't know. That wasn't me. I think just the style of it was really poofy up top, and then it was just really sparse down here. So I probably needed more hair and have it be less poofy up to top. So the hand, I'm weirdly proud of this hand. I noticed that it was just like I hadn't posed it, so it's just like this is like this. But I really like the look of this, and with the subsurface, just I don't know, that just looks really nice on a hand. I tried to do that with the hand down here. It just got lost in the lighting. The fin's good. I kind of just threw this together a little bit. Yeah, it looks really irregular, which in some ways is kind of cool because of how human-like this all is, but it just doesn't really feel like a mermaid fin. It kind of just looks funny. Yeah, the Kuwahara took a lot of the details out, it's one of the hard things I've noticed with painterly is that it looks great, especially like with backgrounds. I think for backgrounds it looks great, but for like the hero assets and the main stuff, you lose so much detail that it just doesn't look as interesting. Like that's why I lowered the Kuwahara so much for her, is because you've basically lost all the texture on the scales and it just didn't look cool. But yeah, the sunset lighting with the subsurface on her skin, it looked so good. I'm really proud of her lighting. Her lighting looks great. I do like the kind of rock formation. I like that I added Suzanne. That was actually very fun to see. Just some kind of my thoughts. Agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments. But yes, this was kind of just like a fun experiment. This was part of an art challenge that I was doing. So it was kind of can I do a quick art challenge within a week or two? And I'm really proud of the result. And I learned a ton about hair and doing kind of the subsurface look and painterly styles as well. And I did live stream part of my workflow while working on this. If you've been missing the live streams, I've done a couple live streams the past, not last month, but the couple months before. I do want to do live streams occasionally every once in a while, so be on the lookout for those. So this is kind of just a reflection on Blender and artwork and a little bit of light painter and just kind of the process of learning. All right, closing. How do I close this? Happy mermaiding. Happy swimming. I guess reflecting. Yeah. Happy reflecting and happy blending.